Space.com I was checking out and saw that China just released photographs of a brand new spacecraft that will take Chinese astronauts to the moon. Of course, we don't call them astronauts, we call them taikonauts, space nauts. This new Chinese lunar crewed spacecraft is going to consist of 2 modules. It can actually hold 4 to 6 taikonauts. And the 2 modules are, number 1, we have the crew module, and then number 2, we have the service module. And the service module is going to be able to provide propulsion, power, as well as life support for the crew section. The spacecraft, which is brand new, is about 30 feet long or 9 meters, and it's got a maximum mass at liftoff of around 22 tons, which is 20 metric tons. The really cool part about this is that the crew module is going to be partially reusable. We see China and their spaceflight program developing similar types of reusable rockets, much like SpaceX as well as Blue Origin today here in these United States. And because the crew module is going to be reusable, the Chinese also designed into it the ability for it to be modular, meaning that it can be constructed and reconstructed to meet a lot of different types of mission demands. My name's Joe, welcome to the Beyond Theory Show, and if you are interested in learning about human spaceflight as well as military space, you can stack your knowledge by subscribing. Prior to the unveiling of this new Chinese human spacecraft, we find out that they've been using the chang'e spacecraft for all of their missions, which, contrary to popular opinion, wasn't designed in Russia. It was actually designed right there in China. And the chang'e spacecraft can carry 3 astronauts to low Earth orbit. The problem is that chang'e cannot survive the harsh radiation environment outside of LEO in deep space, and it also can't survive the high velocity re-entry into Earth's atmosphere that such sorts of missions have to endure. Now, the pictures that were released by the China Academy of Space Technology show the new crewed spacecraft, and again, it can carry 4 to 6 astronauts and will have radiation shielding built into it. Even in 2016, we're told that China launched a boilerplate version of this particular crew module to even test re-entry and landing. Let's you and I keep in mind that so far to date, China has met every single one of their human space exploration goals that they've laid out in advance, their timelines, as well as the goals for the particular missions. At the U.S. Naval War College, Professor Johnson Fries said that these capabilities tell us that China is committed to long-term human spaceflight at a slow but consistent pace. Professor Johnson Fries also explains that the United States has some very exciting programs in varying stages of development and with varying levels of budget commitments that's going to give us significant exploration feats if they come to pass. As an example, SpaceX has their Starship, and NASA is currently struggling through funding their Orion spacecraft program as well as the Space Launch System, which is slated for a human moon mission in 2024. Of course, that Gateway program by NASA is supposed to be a lunar satellite that goes all the way around the moon, kind of like the International Space Station does today around the Earth. What about the timeline of this brand new spacecraft for taikonauts? They are going to launch this in an uncrewed way in the first half of 2020 on the top of a brand new heavy launch vehicle called the Long March 5B. Now, at the same time, this Long March 5B is going to be in China's arsenal for space for a long time. Matter of fact, we're also told that the Long March 5B rocket is going to launch the 22-ton modules for China's planned space station up there in low Earth orbit. And if that test flight goes well, China can then begin building its space station with the launch of a core module, most likely in 2021. Now, they're already telling us that they're going to be sending their taikonauts to the moon, humans back to the moon, in the 2030s. But I got a crosslink for you. The crosslink here is that we also have just learned through, once again, space.com, that China and Russia have agreed very recently to team up for their lunar exploration missions. China's mission Chang'e 4 was the first robotic lander to successfully make a soft landing on the far side of the moon, which was basically a shot across the bow in this brand new space race. And Russia has not returned to the moon since 1976, although they spent about 10 years up there mapping the entire lunar surface and also getting the first pictures of the far side of the moon. The new Chinese Taikonaut mooncraft is actually part of this long-term plan. Together, Russia and China decided to team up by building a shared data center. They're going to have one outpost both in Russia as well as China in order to share their lunar as well as deep space research. Now, you want to know more? I'm going to tell you there's more, because in 2020 we know that Chang'e 5 is going to launch, and that's going to be a sample return mission. Also, Chang'e 6 is going to be a 2023 mission, and that will be returning samples from the south pole of the moon, which is nutrient rich, and there's actually quite a bit of water ice there. If you remember from past series on this channel, which you can access down there in the description box, I'll link the human spaceflight series, we know that one of the leaders in China has already gone on record stating that the first person who gets to the resources in the moon, the first person who gets to areas on the moon, is going to control those resources and control access. And that's why the Chinese want to get there first, and they've been doing it. Well, this Chang'e 7 mission, along with this new Russian-Chinese partnership, is actually going to be assisted. And it should be around 2024 where the lunar orbiter of Russia is going to assist the Chinese mission. In 2028, there's going to be a Russian sample return. Russia also wants to begin doing human flights to the moon, on record at least, in 2029, 2030. Let us not forget that the Chinese have already laid out that they want a science base on the moon that's autonomous, it's robotic. That's going to be on the south pole of the moon in the late 2020s. So we've got this thing ready and rearing to go. As if that wasn't enough for you, if you've been following this channel's military space series, we've already established that China's space program is intimately connected with their military. So we have the recent announcement of the formation of U.S. Space Command in the United States. We also have China's interest in dominating space from a military perspective. And even way back in the 1960s, the Soviet Union then was all about forming plans for human-powered orbital space stations. One of them was called Project Almaz, which included an actual space cannon that was fired, for crying out loud. So let me ask you, what do you think is behind this latest space race news of the Chinese developing their own radiation-shielded lunar crewed module? Let me know down in their comments section. Now, don't forget to subscribe if you enjoy learning about human spaceflight as well as military space activities and news. You can do that by clicking that subscribe button right down there. There's that green thing. And hey, stick around because I'm linking for you a playlist that I know you're going to love right here. Just click on it.